All right. Welcome to the afternoon session of Alignment 2025, and I hope you guys had a great lunch. And welcome to the robotics panel. I'm your host, Jing Wu, and I just introduced our three amazing guests over here. The fun story I said I was going to tell is, Anand was here last year, and after he came here, this year his company actually had a $800 million fund used for robotic startup financing. So I guess my point is I really hope our event can be a lucky charm. So I hope all our panelists can also raise more money after coming to our event. So we saw a really amazing demo, man. I think part of what Chen introduced is we have different ideas in this panel, right? So Anna, let's actually start with you. You're gonna be our X factor here because it is an amazing demo. But honestly, I can't remember when's the last time that a robot demo does not have folding laundry or picking fruits. So I guess in an environment so hyped up about humanoid robots, how can you still stay so poised and motivated to work on cleaning robots?
That's because I make money.
Okay.
As
That's the
simple as
punchline.
that.
Yeah.
I have large enterprises throwing a crap ton of money to solve real problems. And you can, in my opinion, you fall into two camps. You can either get revenue from customers by solving problems or raise millions from VCs by chasing hype.
Yeah, that's cool. So if real application or task-specific robots can make money, so I'm not sure if we mean humanoid robots cannot make money down the road, right? And that's a sharp perspective. I guess, Evan, you just did the demo. How is it like working with Elon at Tesla Optimus? Because your background, you were from the Optimus team. How's it like working with him, and how did that experience influenced you to do your own startup as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Elon is definitely a great and one-of-a-kind entrepreneur, and he's always has this deep tech-driven mindset, and he is a true believer of first principle. So we, from day to day, basically as Optimus, since it's his main focus these days, we had a kind of weekly meeting with him to go through the updates and his directions. Overall, he always tells us to always trying to get a human form factor, even though it's going to be a long path and challenging experience to get there. But he truly believes like once the technology is there, eventually human we will get there, and also the market will be enormous. And yeah, that's and we sometimes even deal with him at like 11 p.m. So he comes to the office to review the robot at 11 p.m. Everybody stays. So he's a really hardcore startup founder, I would say.
Wow, that's amazing. Does that mean your company also work until 11 p.m.?
we are building humanoid, but we are human.
That's a perfect answer. Yeah. If you guys are hiring, then I'm sure the folks will be happier to know you're not 996 or whatever. But yeah, coming to you, Jan, I know. Well, speaking of hype, right? And I read somewhere that OpenMind's actually your company, OpenMind. They put Asimov's law and the robot identity actually on blockchain. So if those words coming together is not hype, I don't know what is. But I know you saw the real deal though, because you were already a professor at Stanford. So I was wondering, what do you see in humanoids now that actually make you so excited to come out and start your own company when you already have so much prestige and resource at Stanford already?
There's a lot to unpack in your question. But what's exciting to me as someone who loves robots is that the long-standing problem in robotics, which is to have a clear line of sight to quote-unquote universally capable humanoids, is now there. And that's because most large language models speak fluent robotics. So this old perspective on how to build software for robots, which is either sort of deterministic task-focused or end-to-end AI, now we have another set of tools that allow us to rapidly repurpose robots for a diverse array of tasks in hospitals, homes, schools, workplaces. And that's the really exciting part, is that large language models, many of them speak fluent robotics already.
What do you mean by speak fluent robotics? Do you mean like they have good connection with the code API, or do you mean humans can use language to command the robots better?
Well, one way to think about this is that large language models are very good at completing stories. If I give a large language model the first chapter of a book, I can ask it to write the next 11 chapters. And if I represent the world as a contiguous block of text, I can then ask a large language model to continue the story. If I then connect the large language model to a physical shell that allows it to move, explore, interact, bark, ask, show emotion, then all of a sudden I have this object in front of me that is much more interactive and much more engaging, and can also learn in ways that really hasn't been true before for robotics.
I see. That's a good point. So the interaction side of things. Anand, is there any quick comeback or anything quick to add after you hear from two folks that are slightly bullish on humanoids? Maybe do we need like both task-specific robots and humanoids in the long term, or?
Depends on what part of the sector or industry you're going after, is what I would argue. If you're going after B2B enterprises where people have enough money, task-specific is far better, because just that single task alone will take more than 24 hours for a single robot to complete. And then I don't need a general-purpose robot that's overbuilt. An analogy I like to make is, if Henry Ford was asked, okay, how are you going to design a far better transportation system? He's not going to take a horse or a human being and make that into a system. No, he's going to take a car. Cars are far better at transporting goods from A to B. My vacuuming robot will far outcompete any vacuuming humanoid or humanoid trying to vacuum with a Dyson. Yeah. So this building alone, if I had to vacuum this entire space, I need about 4 or 5 different vacuuming robots to be able to take care of that. It's far cheaper, far more reliable, far easier to be able to get that done than to have a single humanoid trying to do, or a team of humanoids trying to do the same thing. So it all boils down to what are we going after. And in enterprises, tasks are meaningful enough, large enough, that an application specific gets you to your ROI far more reliably.
Yeah, that's a perfect point. And I believe you, because some of Anand's clients actually include some really big names that we know, big tech companies like Apple, or these companies in the Valley are your clients. So definitely, so it seems like the key is, how do we roll out robots to its proper applications? What are the roadblocks to the mass adoption of robots, right? So I guess on the mechanical side, coming to you, Evan, kind of, your hand is really amazing, because we might not know it only costs $300, and it squeezes in the features and the degrees of freedoms of hands that usually cost thousands of dollars. So I wonder how you guys are able to make it. Are there any recent breakthrough, and what still makes it so hard for you guys to do some of these complicated tasks?
Sure, absolutely. So I think, coming to robotic hand design, especially human form factor, it's not only about, like we just need to get this joint to move this many degree of freedom. It's more about understanding the end result, the functionality of a human hand, why it's such a form factor, and how people are interacting with objects around you. So that's why we are sticking with this cable tendon-driven form architecture. And I know there are some other different architecture, like linkages or direct actuator drives. Those are you see them move smoothly and nicely, but they are not built to really work like a human hand. So that's kind of very important. That's why we picked this cable-driven architecture. Yeah, that's my 2 cents from mechanical design perspective.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess then, from the software perspective, because Evan just said, right, we have different software based on different type of hardware. So that's also kind of the what companies usually do. If Figure or if NVIDIA, their robots is built in a specific way, they're going to have a specific model for that. But Jan, you believe in open source and modular software. You believe in different types of hardware might be able to work with the same open source software that you have. So I guess, why do you believe the robot operating system needs to be open source? And yeah, how does that help solve some of the bottlenecks in software?
Okay, well, again, there's loads going on in your question. There's why is open source useful? And of course, the internet runs on open source software, and most phones on Earth run on open source software. It's called Android. So there's certainly a lot of examples for how open source software powers really important things. The other thing you alluded to is the optimal architecture to use for thinking machines. And as we've already heard, in robotics, it's extremely important to be extremely specific. When people throw around things like robotics or humanoids, it is vital to be specific about the task you're trying to accomplish. For example, if you're building a humanoid sex robot, obviously you're trying to accomplish a very different set of, it's a very different business case and form factor compared to a vacuum cleaner, compared to something BMW would like to use to put Torx bolts into their engine control units. If you think about the global economy, something like a third of that is based on manual labor, like people doing things. It's something like 30 trillion a year is based on humans doing stuff in the physical world. And something like a third of that third involves hands. So obviously, if you're going after something like iPhone assembly, then exquisite hands are critical. So then with respect to your question, what is the right architecture for humanoid robots? There's no simple answer. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're physically manipulating things, that requires exquisite technology like we saw earlier today with hands, but it also requires amazing compute. Yeah. The difficulty of making sense of your physical world, deciding what you should do with the hand, and then being able to deal with all those degrees of freedom to accomplish a task is a big compute problem. With respect to what a lot of companies are doing right now, which is exploring the possibility of modular Lego block-like architectures for humanoid, including Intrinsic, including OpenAI's robotics, including NVIDIA Foxconn humanoid, including everyone else who's currently working on software for humanoids. The central idea is that it's much easier to debug smaller pieces of software rather than like fine-tuning some end-to-end AI or something like that. So it's not only us that is thinking about modular architectures, it's many other people in the industry as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess, Evan, coming back to you very quickly, because you working on hands before, right now on robotic hand, we probably saw the demo succeeded one time today, but yesterday, there's like a number of tries, and we were talking about how difficult it is with the, tactile sensors, or there's maybe a lack of force feedback on the hand. So, what are your thoughts on some of these hardware working with the, smaller modular software like Professor Yang mentioned?
Okay. So I think your question is about some hardware sensing and
like software working with different type of hardware. Like, do you guys write specific software for your hardware, or do you see it being able to work with other types of software in the future?
Absolutely. So with the hand we showed today, it's a total pure open source hand, including the hardware and also software. We're going to rely on industrial and academic people and even hobbyists trying to contribute to this whole thing and to create this ecosystem around the hardware to make it better and better. That's why we just market it at $314. So it's a really easy to enter this dexterous manipulation world without breaking the bank.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anand, I guess come to you. You've seen robot deploying in the real world. What do you feel like is the bottleneck to the mass adoption of robots? Is it on the hardware side or on the software side, or maybe it's something else?
So between us and our partners, we have about 35,000 robots deployed in the real world. Clients
1,000.
include Walmart, Amazon, Apple, NVIDIA, Meta, Hilton, Marriott, MGM, etc. The challenges that we see, the biggest challenge today that we are actually overcoming is not building the robot, it's not the software, it's not even the hardware. It's the fact that robots break down all the bloody time. Question for you, Evan. How often do your robotic arms break down?
Yeah, so yeah, I would imagine once we really deployed it, that's quite a big issue at this moment.
Yeah. So in the 48 states we are deployed in today, pick any state, I will tell you a city right now, I have a broken robot.
Wow,
and that is my biggest headache, is uptime. Being able to make sure my robots are operating. To that end, like we are hiring thousands of veterans to go out and train them and be a robot technician. But that is the real world challenges that need to be overcome. Along with that, there's the entire finance aspect to this. Like, how do you actually get the capital to be able to do all of these systems? Robots aren't cheap. Hardware is not cheap. Yeah. And then a lot of the tasks people go after, such as laundry folding, this is minimum wage tasks. Most parts of the country, we are still at $12, $10 per hour. So how do you make the math work in that front?
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk about business model and reliability, and that actually are two more talking points that we're going to get into. I guess in terms of business model, Evan, Elon last year said the Optimus robot will cost only around $20,000 to $30,000. Do you feel like that's feasible? And if it is, how can startups like you guys to compete with companies like Tesla, because they have so much more manufacturing capacity?
Yeah, totally. First of all, with the price point Elon brought up, $20,000, $30,000, I am truly believing that. Like, once anything getting to mass production, we are basically optimizing all this process, and so the cost down to basically BOM costs and pure material costs. And talking about the cars, right? Cars have such a high mass of material around it, but it's still maybe around $40,000, $50,000. But so the humanoid robot, eventually, I totally believe we will get down to $20,000, $30,000. However, so talking to how we can compete in this game versus Elon or Tesla, I believe, as Anand was saying, like in the future, I also believe there will be many different form factors of robots. So Elon is trying to build the Optimus, which is one SKU, right? Like one human form factor. But a human is not designed to be the most efficient form factor to do all kind of tasks. So, but the hand, I believe, will have more compatibility on different tasks. So it will be different platform, but integrate all kind of hand shape. And as a hand-focused company, we're also developing, different SKUs kind of hand. Even the human hand, we build differently. Like some people with very elegant hand can do like music instrument, and some hands are more like strong and like labor-driven hands. so where our robot hand will be.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll see, the chairs being carried on by robot hands, and with the robot themselves for sure. Jan, I know you mentioned Android in robotics. I guess part of the reason why Android works is because it also integrates closely with the rest of Google's ecosystem, right? Like it drives people to Google's ads revenue and all of that. But for a startup who does not yet have that type of ecosystem, how do you see open source business models start to work out in robotics?
To quickly comment on what we heard earlier, there's some really excellent points we're surfacing. One of them is the reliability, and I totally agree. That's probably the main thing right now is just we expect when we go outside, we expect our Tesla to just work. And most robotics deployments right now, except for things like in the Gigafactory or in car factories, have nowhere near the robustness or reliability that one would like. The other thing we're seeing as a practical barrier to deploying humanoids and quadruped into American households is as simple as liability insurance. Try to go to an insurance company and say, hey man, I'm deploying humanoids into US households on October 15 for healthcare, math education, and security. I need liability insurance, and they'll laugh. So the good news is that Munich Re, as of last week, is offering AI Sure, which is liability insurance for humanoids. And the point of that insurance is that if the humanoid fails to perform a task, Munich Re will cover liability arising from that. And so totally agree with Anand. For certain specific use cases, the technology, the hardware is basically good enough. The software is basically good enough. It's really things like business models. Is this leasing? Is this subscription service for add-on apps for your humanoid? Is this something that old people's homes purchase for their patients? So who's buying? How much are they paying for it? How are they paying for it? And how are you dealing with things like reliability and insurance? There's one new task for humans that blows my mind, and this is based on deploying humanoid into memory care facilities. So that's a situation of where the humanoid does not have hands because it's not necessary. The point of the humanoid is to engage with a human and make them laugh and cry and listen for people who've been in memory care facilities for years and have almost no interactions with other humans. And humans in that situation get so attached to the humanoid that the nurses in the evening have to wipe lipstick off of the head of the humanoid. And so this is part of the general maintenance of robots deployed into human settings.
Yeah, I see. Well, I was looking for different opinions, but I got a lot of agreements with between you and Anand. So I guess that's a great point. Anand, you were smiling a lot before when Jan talked about insurance and all these problems. Do you have anything quick to add there?
Yeah, that is what I'd say is the difference between the real world and then the academia or the startup world. In the real world, insurance is a big thing. COIs, being able to comply, legal. Good luck trying to get a large language model approved for any of these large companies. Good luck trying to get Chinese robots like a Unitree inside where there are so many backdoors where the privacy is a big aspect. Data security is a massive aspect. How do you get them deployed in large-scale industrial sectors? How do you get offices? We clean Jamie Dimon's personal office with a robot. I am paranoid because I was like, holy shit, that's a huge security risk. We are in multiple defense sectors. We have robots running around there at SpaceX and at military bases. So how do you get through the security clearance? How do you get through insurance? How do you get through reliability? How do you get through making sure that when the robot breaks down, someone can show up and fix it? That is the real world that needs to be solved far more importantly, and people are spending a lot more time trying to figure those portions out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna cover reliability very quickly. But first, Anand, more about your $800 million fund. I guess one thing is, how did you even discover that as one of your business model? Where did you find that need? And why can't just robotic startup find customers and funding on their own?
It's a great question. Longer story short is getting access. So we spoke with 30+ CEOs of robotic companies who all raised a Series A and could never get to a Series B. And this was generally, I'd say, the wave 2 of robotic companies. This was the Willow Garage style, the Savvy Oak Robotics, etc. Some of the most legendary robotic companies there are. And one of the biggest reasons they fail is getting access to capital. Capital is expensive. Typically, there are two ways of getting funding. You can go to debt, your bank, Silicon Valley Bank, who not incredibly high rates because you are a startup, you're not profitable. Or you can go to VCs. And VCs will take a portion of equity, but that's gated capital. If you don't hit certain benchmarks, they're not going to give you more money. Now, robots are expensive. They're not cheap. They're not easy to build. They require a lot of R&D. And most of my customers don't want to pay upfront for $50,000 for a robot. What they would much rather do is $1,000 a month, because that's what they're used to paying a human being to doing that particular task. So how do you bridge that particular bridge if you get an order for 500 robots and that robot costs you, say, $20,000, you require $10 million worth of capital to be able to even go out and buy or procure or build so many robots. Who is going to give you that $10 million? The VCs? No, that's too expensive. Equity dollars don't exist for that. And banks, they will eat up your entire margin. So we created this fund with a consortium of 18 different banks to be able to actually underwrite the contract, underwrite the end customer, and do it at 3-4% compared to what Silicon Valley Bank gives it at 18%.
Yeah, that's a good point. It sounds like a lot of effort trying to go in to enable us deploying more robots in the real world without worrying too much about the underlying risk, because that's always a work in progress. So speaking of reliability, Anand, you've covered it a lot on the reliability side. I want to ask Evan as well. So, you know, how far away are we from reliable robot hands? And also, one thing that extends from reliability is if the robot is reliable, it's safe, we can start to trust them. So Professor Ronnie Brooks actually said in one of his essays earlier this week that if the humanoid hands have tactile feedback, it can really help foster a better human-robot interaction. So just largely, how does robot hand all play into all this?
I would say from my 2 cents, maybe in the next 2-3 years, we're going to see a lot of maturity on the hardware side, especially on the hand. But for the general whole body, especially the biped, right, that still takes maybe a little longer, because to get to that level of maturity, need a whole system improvement. But just by hand itself, I totally believe when with the whole resource from the whole society focusing on getting this better and better, we believe we'll get there in the next 2-3 years.
Wow, that's an optimistic look. And I guess, Jan, in terms of reliability, like I said, is trust, is interacting with the robots. You're actually one of the only, maybe the only person I know that lives with robots. I wonder how are Iris and Franchi doing? And yeah, how do you ensure safety and trust when you actually interact with these robots that actually live in your home?
I encourage all the engineers and investors and bankers and scientists in this audience to get a robot and try to live with it. Because that will immediately expose a long list of things that are irrelevant in the lab, but critical for deploying humanoid or quadruped into households. A great example would be cooling. A lot of the humanoids right now have these big fans going 24 hours. And if you've ever tried to sleep next to a humanoid with a loud cooling fan, it's literally impossible. That's irrelevant if you're a humanoid in a lab, because no one cares about sound levels. But the other thing is, when the humanoid walks around your house, it's very loud. On wooden floors, it goes clunk, clunk, clunk. And so those are little things that become only apparent when you try to live with a humanoid. And with respect to trust, the whole notion of building open source software for humanoid, for me personally, was a no-brainer. I have kids. I want my kids to be able to look into the brain of thinking machines around them and say, aha, I can kind of see what's happening here. I can see how the data are moving. I can see bugs. I can contribute, add, fix. And in retrospect, focusing on open source software for humanoid was not only meaningful for me as a parent, it also makes good business sense for reasons we heard earlier. Imagine you're a quote-unquote international manufacturer of humanoids and you're trying to sell into US markets. Like, good luck. Imagine you want to sell your humanoid into a US police department, fire station, elementary school, hospital. And the first question you get is, why should we trust the software? Where are the data going somewhere I don't want it to go? And a good solution for that is that if you build good hardware, why don't you use open source software brewed with love in San Francisco and have the data stay in the US on HIPAA compliant servers? And so it turned out that building open source software for many, many different verticals is not only good for all the parents in this room who care about where the technology is going, but make very good sense, nuts and bolts, for rev share deals with Chinese robotics companies.
Well, Anand, we got 30 seconds left. Anything quick to add on reliability or the safety trust side of things?
I have one question for Evan, actually. Evan, where do you see the need for 5 fingers versus 3? What task truly requires 5 fingers that 3 fingers cannot do?
Yeah.
I kind of asked him the same question yesterday, actually.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I think when you're talking about basically pick and place task, right? 3 fingers totally enough for like tripod support. However, once you start talking about like doing tool operation, like using a vacuum, right? You need at least 4 finger, I would say, 4 finger to hold your tool first, and then use your index finger to pull the trigger. If you don't have this extra redundancy, your ring finger only 3, you are only picking up your vacuum with 2 finger now, and then 1 index finger for pulling the trigger. Then that's not stable state. I will argue maybe fifth finger is not that important on the pinky, but 4 finger is definitely a need.
Yeah, this is cool. I love how this is turning into a biology and evolution theory class real quick. But yeah, today we covered robotics progress and challenges from the impossible trinity, which is the technology and the cost and also the reliability side. So yeah, I really appreciate our guests here, and let's give it up for our panelists.
Answer for you. So if you have a robot girlfriend, you need the ring finger. Right? How do you propose to the girlfriend without ring finger?
That's right. That's right.